Today I will explain the hidden truth of where you go each night when you sleep, the mystery your mind enters without awareness. So now let's begin the explanation. You fall asleep every night, and you never pause to ask where you actually go. It is funny when you think about it. You spend 1/3 of your life disappearing into a space you cannot remember, yet you call it rest. The body goes heavy, the world fades out, and something inside you slips away without hesitation. Most people shrug and say this is normal. I say it is rehearsal. Deep sleep is the closest experience you have to death, but you walk through it like a child wandering into a dark room without a flashlight. You cross a doorway every single night, but you do it unconsciously, so the mystery never reveals itself. What fascinates me is how casually people treat this vanishing act. They talk about sleep as if it is a simple biological function. They forget that something far deeper happens when the lights of the mind switch off. Memory shuts down. Identity dissolves. Even your name loses meaning. For a few hours, you are not the person you fight to be all day long. You are not the stories, the worries, or the ambitions. You melt into a space where none of those things exist. If you could enter that space with awareness, you would understand why ancient mystics never feared death. They practiced it in tiny doses every night. What I want you to see is this. Sleep is not just rest. It is a return to the source that keeps you alive, the same source you forget during the rush of your day. But the return is unconscious, so the truth stays hidden. This is why we begin here, with the question no one dares to ask. Where do you go when you are not here? And what would happen if you learned to walk into that darkness with your eyes open? Most people don't really sleep. They crash. You know exactly what I mean. It is that feeling when you fall into bed, not because you are ready, but because you are done. The body collapses the way a phone shuts off at 0%. There is no gentle transition, no conscious release, just a sudden drop into darkness. People call it sleep, but it is closer to unconscious shutdown. Their mind is still buzzing with unfinished thoughts, tiny worries, half-remembered conversations, and the pressure they carry through the day. All of that noise follows them into the night. They sink under it, instead of stepping away from it. Think about how often you have gone to bed with a tight chest, a restless mind, or that heavy cloud of anxiety hanging on your shoulders. You pull the blanket over your body, but the thoughts keep pulling you back. That is not sleep. That is escape. And escape never repairs anything. It only pauses the damage for a few hours. When you wake up from this kind of sleep, you can feel it instantly. Your eyes are open, but your system is still tired. The body rested a little, but the mind never reset. The emotional weight never cleared. You simply picked up the same chaos you carried last night and dragged it into a new day. This is the cost of unconscious living. People move through life like devices used without care. Too many tabs open, too many programs running in the background. No time to restart. Eventually the system freezes, and even then they wonder why they feel tired, burned out, or disconnected. It is not because life is too heavy. It is because they never learned how to power down consciously. Real sleep is a skill, a form of inner engineering. It requires intention. It requires presence. It requires treating your inner world with the same care you give your outer world. When the body sleeps without awareness, it only rests. Rest is basic maintenance. It keeps you alive, but it does not transform you. Awareness changes everything. When awareness is present, sleep becomes more than rest. It becomes mastery. A moment where the mind clears itself. A moment where the nervous system resets. A moment where your inner world repairs without resistance. This is the difference between crashing and sleeping. One drains you, the other rebuilds you. And the shift begins the moment you decide to enter the night consciously instead of collapsing into it. Every night, without fail, the entire world collapses in seconds. It is almost shocking how quietly it happens. One moment you are here, wrapped in your identity, holding your worries, replaying the day. The next moment, everything you thought was solid simply dissolves. The sense of being a separate person begins to loosen. The mind loses its grip on who you are supposed to be. Even your name, the thing you defend all day long, slips away like a whisper fading in the dark, and you do not resist it. You surrender to this disappearance without hesitation, as if your deeper self knows the way home. In deep sleep there is no story running, no past pulling at you, no future waiting to be solved. For a few hours you return to a silent reset point, a place that feels like nothingness from the outside, but is actually the most fertile ground within you. It is not empty, it is pure potential. Think of it as the original operating system beneath all your layers. When you enter this space, your mind goes back to its factory state. The emotional storms settle, the inner clutter clears, the body repairs itself, the nervous system recalibrates. Something essential is happening, even if you are not aware of it. This is the part that fascinates me. You do not have to believe in spirituality or mysticism for this truth to be real. Science will tell you the same thing in different language. The brain reorganizes, the neurotransmitters balance, the memory system defragments. The body performs maintenance routines it cannot do while you are awake. Whether you call it spirit or biology does not matter. Both point to the same intelligence. Something inside you resets at a level deeper than thought. Most people think deep sleep is nothing, a blank screen, a blackout. But look closer, that blankness is a doorway. It is the place where the ego dissolves and the soul reconnects with its original signal. You touch this source every night. You just do it unconsciously. And because you are unaware of this nightly return, the deeper truth remains hidden. But once you learn to approach this space with awareness, the nothingness reveals itself as everything. It becomes the quiet engine behind your clarity, your calm, and your awakening. Think of your inner world like a quiet laboratory that no one ever visits. All day long you move through life on the surface, reacting to situations, solving problems, absorbing emotions. But beneath that surface there is a deeper space where real repair happens. That space becomes active when you sleep. This is your maintenance cycle, the nightly reset built into the human system. The body repairs tissues that you never notice. The brain sorts memories, discarding the useless ones and strengthening the important ones. The nervous system balances signals and eases the stress you collected during the day. It is a beautiful piece of natural engineering, perfectly designed and fully automatic. The strange thing is that most of this happens without any awareness. You lie down, you disappear, and the inner mechanics start working. It is like having a powerful machine inside you that runs itself while you are unconscious. But imagine this. What if you could step into that inner laboratory while the maintenance is happening? What if you could watch the mind shifting into stillness? What if you could enter the space between waking and sleeping with clarity, instead of collapsing into it with exhaustion? This is where the path of conscious rest begins. A yogi approaches sleep the way an engineer walks into a machine room, calm, alert, curious. There is no fear of the dark or the unknown. There is no confusion about what happens inside. A yogi lies down with intention, not to escape the day, but to explore the inner world that opens when the body becomes still. They treat sleep as a doorway, instead of a shutdown. They carry awareness into the space where most people vanish. And here is the powerful part. When you bring awareness into the sleeping process, you influence the system from the inside. You do not just rest. You recalibrate. You do not just dream. You observe. You do not just repair. You guide the repair. Conscious rest is not about staying awake all night. It is about waking up inside the moments where most people disappear. When you learn how to enter that space with clarity, sleep transforms from a basic biological function into a form of mastery. You become the operator of your own inner laboratory, not just a passenger carried by it. Dreams are not random, and deep down you already know that. They feel strange only because they use a language you have forgotten how to read. Inside the dream world, everything becomes symbolic. The mind speaks in pictures, the heart speaks in moods, the subconscious speaks in stories. It is the same information you ignore during the day, but at night it loses the filter and shows itself in raw form. When the mind is overloaded, it visualizes the excess as images that feel chaotic or exaggerated. When the heart is holding something heavy, it releases the weight through symbols instead of sentences. And when the subconscious wants your attention, it creates an entire world where the message can finally be seen. Most people wake up and dismiss their dreams in the first few seconds. They say it was just nonsense or a weird movie. They forget everything because they never entered the dream with intention. They fell into sleep the way someone falls into a dark room with no awareness of where they are going. When you enter unconsciously, you exit unconsciously. The messages are delivered, but no one is awake to receive them. It is like having a mailbox full of important letters that you never bother to open. But an awakened sleeper approaches dreams differently. They treat the dream world the way an engineer treats data, calm, curious, without panic or attachment. They observe patterns. They feel the tone of the dream instead of chasing the literal details. They understand that every image is a clue, every symbol is a reflection, every figure is a part of themselves speaking in disguise. They do not analyze with force. They simply stay present inside the experience, almost like watching their own mind from a distance. Dream awareness is the first doorway to conscious sleep. It teaches you how to stay awake inside a world created entirely by your inner system. It trains you to witness instead of react. When you begin to recall dreams naturally, it means your awareness is starting to shine through the darkness. You are learning to meet yourself in a deeper space. You are learning to listen to the inner messages you have ignored for years. And slowly, night after night, the dream world stops feeling random and starts feeling like a quiet conversation between your conscious mind and the deeper intelligence that guides your life from within. Imagine your mind as a quiet room with all the lights turned off. You know the room is there, but you cannot see anything inside it. Every night you enter that room whether you want to or not. You do not walk in, you fall in. The body gets heavy, the thoughts blur, and suddenly you are gone. This is the normal way people meet the night. They collapse into darkness without any awareness of how they got there. It is a forced entry, not a conscious step, but an awakened person enters that same room differently. They carry a flashlight, and that flashlight is awareness. Awareness does not mean thinking or analyzing. Awareness is simple presence. It is the soft attention you turn inward as the body starts to relax. When you do this, something subtle happens. You begin to notice the moment when the waking world loosens its grip. You feel the shift between thinking and drifting. You sense the body sinking into stillness while the inner world becomes brighter. When you direct your attention inward at this exact point, you carry consciousness across the threshold. You do not black out. You do not vanish. Instead, you stay awake inside the transition. You witness something most people never see. You watch the body fall asleep while you remain present within yourself. It feels strange at first, almost like floating. The breathing softens, the muscles release. The usual chatter of the mind fades into silence, and yet you are still there, watching it happen. This is the beginning of inner mastery, staying awake during the fall. Not awake in the physical sense, but awake in the sense of awareness. You are learning to enter the dark room of your mind with clarity instead of fear. You are learning to replace the unconscious drop with a conscious descent. The more often you do this, the more familiar the darkness becomes. It stops feeling like an empty space and starts feeling like an inner landscape waiting to be explored. When you carry even a small spark of awareness into the moment of sleep, the entire relationship with your inner world changes. You stop being a passenger. You become a participant. You stop crashing into the night. You begin walking into it with intention. And in that gentle moment, where waking meets dreaming, you take your first real step toward becoming the engineer of your own consciousness. Unconscious sleep feels like collapse. Your body gives up, your mind shuts down, and you slip into darkness without choice. It is the kind of sleep that comes from exhaustion, not awareness. You fall into it the way someone falls into a deep hole. It gives temporary relief, but it does not bring transformation. This is the sleep most people live with. It is an escape from life, a brief pause from carrying the weight of the day, and when you wake up, you pick up the same weight again, because nothing inside you has changed. Awakened sleep is completely different. It is not collapse. It is entry. You do not fall into it. You step into it. Instead of running from life, you explore it from the inside. Imagine lying down at night, not to disappear, but to discover. You start noticing the moment your thoughts loosen, the moment your breath deepens, the moment your inner world opens. You do not drift away unconsciously. You slide inward gently, like entering a warm pool. There is no fear, no resistance, only presence. In unconscious sleep, you forget who you are. All your stories, your name, your identity, they fade away without your participation. In awakened sleep, you begin to see who you are beneath all those layers. You meet the part of yourself that exists before thought, before emotion, before memory. That deeper self is always there, but unconscious sleep hides it. Awareness reveals it. This is why conscious sleep is not a philosophy. It is an experience. It is not about believing anything. It is about paying attention to the simple moments inside you that most people overlook, The shift from unconscious to awakened sleep is a training, a gentle, patient training. You do not force anything. You do not control anything. You simply bring awareness to the natural process that was always happening. It begins with something as simple as intention. As you lie down, you quietly decide to stay aware for a little longer than usual. You feel your breath. You notice the mind changing gears. You notice the body relaxing in waves. Slowly the habit forms, and once the habit forms, the inside world begins to open on its own. This is how awakening always begins, not with dramatic moments, but with quiet awareness. You start waking up inside the night, the same way you begin waking up inside your life, gently, gradually, deliberately. And one day, without trying, you realize that sleep is no longer a blackout. It has become a doorway. The shift is complete. The night is no longer an escape. It is a journey inward, a journey you are finally awake enough to take. Yoga Nidra is what happens when you stop treating sleep as a blackout and start treating it as a doorway. It translates to conscious sleep, but those words only scratch the surface. It is not meditation, because meditation keeps you in the waking world. It is not dreaming, because dreaming sweeps you into stories. Yoga Nidra is the thin, mysterious space between both. You lie down the same way you always do, but something different happens. The body begins to relax, as if it is powering down, yet your awareness stays bright inside, almost like a small flame that refuses to fade. The first time you slip into this state, it feels like floating in a silent ocean. There is no pressure, no effort, no thought pulling you around. You are simply resting inside yourself, completely present, but deeply relaxed. It is one of the few moments in life where the nervous system stops bracing against the world. When you drop into this conscious rest, the body heals faster, the emotional weight loosens, and the mind becomes clear in a way normal sleep never achieves. It is the kind of clarity that feels like someone wiped dust off an inner window you did not know existed. The beauty of Yoga Nidra is its simplicity. You do not have to perform anything dramatic. You lie down, let the breath slow, and gently keep the attention awake. The body becomes heavy, the sensations fade, but you stay, not thinking, not analyzing, just witnessing. This is like sitting in the control room of your own inner machine while it repairs itself. The operator is present, calm, aware, but the machine is powering down for maintenance. It is a state where the physical world softens and the inner world brightens. With practice, this becomes one of the most advanced forms of inner engineering, not because it is complicated, but because it trains you to separate awareness from the body and the mind. You learn that you can relax the body completely while staying awake inside. You learn that your awareness does not depend on the physical senses. You begin to understand what ancient teachers meant when they said the body is a temporary robe and you are the one wearing it. Yoga Nidra gently shows you this truth through direct experience. When you master the art of staying awake inside, sleep stops being a place where you disappear. It becomes a place where you return to yourself. And the more you enter this space consciously, the more your days begin to shift. You feel lighter without trying. You respond instead of reacting. You sense the deeper intelligence moving beneath the surface of your life. Yoga Nidra is not just a technique, it is a bridge to the part of you that has always been awake, even when the rest of you falls asleep. There is a moment in sleep where everything you cling to simply dissolves. It is deeper than dreaming and quieter than silence. In that space, the ego is gone. The identity you defend all day long is gone. Even the world you think is so solid disappears, as if someone gently switched it off. This deepest layer of sleep is a kind of disappearance, but not in a dramatic or violent way. It is soft, it is total, and it is unavoidable. Every human being touches this place every night, whether they know it or not. For most people, this idea is frightening. They never notice the moment it happens, because they are unconscious, but the fear hides inside them. It shows up as the fear of losing control, the fear of deep silence, the fear of being alone, and most of all, the fear of death. People are not afraid of death itself. They are afraid of the unknown space, where their sense of self no longer exists. And yet, the astonishing truth is that you enter that very space every night, and you do it without effort. It is the one place you visit where the ego cannot follow, because the ego can only survive in the waking world. When you begin to enter this space consciously, everything changes. You discover that the void you feared is not a threat at all. It is peaceful, it is soft, it is spacious in a way that feels almost familiar, like returning to a room you forgot existed. There is no pressure to think or perform. There is no identity to maintain. You are simply awareness resting in its purest form. Ancient teachers called this space the ground of being, the original state before you wrapped yourself in labels and stories. It is the birthplace of consciousness, the silent source from which your waking self arises every morning. What makes this so powerful is that you have already mastered it without realizing it. The void is not something you have to reach through struggle or spiritual effort. You touch it every night. You just touch it unconsciously, so the experience remains hidden. When awareness enters that space with you, the hidden becomes visible. You see that the void is not a place where you disappear. It is a place where everything you pretend to be falls away, and everything you truly are remains. Touching the void without fear becomes one of the most liberating experiences of your life. It teaches you that endings are not destruction, they are return. It teaches you that silence is not empty, it is full of presence. And slowly, night after night, the great fear that controls most humans begins to dissolve. You understand that the deep unknown is not your enemy. It is your origin. It is the place that holds you every night, rebuilding you in ways you cannot see. And when you wake up with this awareness, the day feels lighter, the world feels less threatening, and your life begins to open from the inside. Most people look at their exhaustion and assume something is wrong with them. They think they are tired because life is too heavy, stressed because they are weak, or spiritually lost because they cannot find a clear path. But the truth is much simpler and far more gentle. They have been sleeping unconsciously their entire life. Their body rests, but their awareness never participates. Their nights reset the physical system, but the inner world stays tangled. And when the inner world stays tangled, no amount of sleep feels like enough. This has nothing to do with being broken. It has everything to do with not knowing how to enter the night with presence. Conscious sleep is not a special skill reserved for mystics. It is your natural state. The human system was built for it. Every night your body tries to guide you back to clarity, but because you fall into sleep unconsciously, the guidance never reaches you. Once you begin to bring awareness into the simple moments of falling asleep, everything starts to shift. You do not force it. You do not fight for it. You simply return home with your eyes open, the same way you walk into a familiar room, but notice details you never saw before. When you start meeting the dark with clarity, instead of fear, sleep becomes something new. It is no longer a place where you disappear. It becomes a place where you reset and realign from the inside. You start waking up, not just rested, but grounded, not just refreshed, but centered. The anxiety you thought was permanent becomes lighter. The confusion you carried for years begins to dissolve. You see the difference between unconscious collapse and conscious rest, and you realize you have been starving for awareness, not sleep. And here is the beautiful part. When you bring consciousness into the world of sleep, you transform not only the night, but the day. You respond instead of react. You feel instead of numb out. You notice your inner signals before they turn into storms. Your life starts to feel aligned from within, as if someone adjusted the inner compass you did not know was crooked. This clarity is not a reward for perfection. It is the natural outcome of being awake, where you were once unconscious. You are not broken. You are waking up, slowly, gently, in your own timing. The path is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering the deeper signal that has always been inside you. Every night, you return to that signal. And now, for the first time, you are learning to return consciously. This is the beginning of a different life, one that rises from awareness instead of habit, one where you do not fear the dark, because you have learned how to see inside it.